last year, I spent 3 months on crutches. I've been a part of a speed skating club in Yonkers for the last dozen years or so. And, well, I got back into it in January after the Christmas break. I'd just coming off of a injury to my knee. Maybe it was a little too soon, but I was taking a corner. Maybe I was going a little too fast. Maybe I was going a little too slow. Maybe I wasn't quite in a tucked position. Whatever it was, maybe somebody clipped my skate behind me. I went down. Now, I've fallen plenty of times in my speed skating career. I used to have a coach who said, if you're not falling, you're not skating fast enough. But this time, it was different. Sometimes when another skater falls, we'll call out on the ice, put some ice on it. Well, I was sitting on the ice all right, except this time I couldn't get up. I had fractured my hip majorly. Looking back on it, I could see how it all came together, how I just pushed things too fast, too soon, how I made a series of mistakes. And you know what one of the most ludicrous things was? I felt like a failure. And I had 3 months to mull over that fact every day. Well, failure's a big part of our lives, isn't it? What's your greatest failure? You ever flunk a test or fail a whole course? Did you ever try out for a sports team only to be told that you weren't good enough? Have you ever been fired from a job or filed for bankruptcy or gone to divorce court? All of us know what failure is like, and it's a miserable, debilitating feeling. There's a story in the Jewish scriptures about Moses, the great patriarch, and he's leading his people out from slavery. And they go on this trip to this promised land, and they do nothing but complain. They're hungry. We're walking around in circles. We're thirsty. We were better off when we were slaves. And Moses is so fed up with all of their complaining that he takes a big stick, his rod, and he beats a rock and water gushes forth. But in doing so, he jeopardizes his own chance for seeing the thing that he longed for most in life, the promised land. Well, that's not the end of Moses' life or his legacy or his leadership, but it does give us a few quick lessons in failure. And the first lesson is, I'm not, you aren't, your failure. It's good to remember that. And secondly, sometimes we need to put some fences, some perimeters around our failures. I know people who tell me that they lay awake at night thinking how they failed their loved ones years and years ago. We've got to put some perimeters, some boundaries to the failures in our life. And thirdly, I need to be reminded not to worry so much about what other people think of me. Well, this is my life. They have their own life. They don't look at my failures as intensely as I do, so I don't need to worry about it. It's great when people think you're great, but what's more important is for you to hang on to your dream and to follow it at all cost. And finally, you hear this all the time, and that's learn from your failures. I remember hearing Michael Jordan say that he made 9,000 shots in his career that he missed. He lost more than 300 games on 26 occasions. He was prepared to take the last shot, and he missed them all. He failed and failed again. But Jordan said, that's why I'm a success. Well, I think early in my life, I was a youth director in Indianapolis on the west side. We lived between a college called Ooey Pooey, that's what the locals called it, and the Purina dog chow factory. If you can imagine putting your nose in your dog's food dish for 24/7, that's what it was like to live on the west side of Indianapolis in those days. Now, the guy I followed was big into choirs and into music, and he ran this choir as part of the program. But me, I could just bang some chords on a guitar. I didn't know anything about choirs. But when I tried to get the kids to do things, it just didn't seem to happen. I'd score tickets to the professional basketball team there, the Pacers. 2 or 3 kids would show up. I'd plan a ski trip to Michigan. They wouldn't even bother to sign up. Well, it's Michigan after all. And I'd plan a really blowout night at the Indianapolis University or Indiana University Sports Complex, and the kids would just yawn. I felt like I was a failure, and the parents, they weren't helping either. But then I realized something, that I was doing the same things, trying to succeed in the same way that the guy who ran the choir was doing. And going after the same kids who drove in from the suburbs, not kids who lived in the smelly west side of Indianapolis. So I started going to their high schools at lunchtime and talking to some of the kids. You could do that in those days. And I planned things, and kids would show up, not just ones and twos and threes, but whole busloads of kids, because I realized that he didn't have to be and didn't have to follow the same path that someone else did to success. There's a quote that Rabbi Kushner says, and I really think it's great. He said, if you've been brave enough to love, and sometimes you've won, and sometimes you've lost. If you cared enough to try, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. If you were bold enough to dream, sometimes your dreams came true and other times they ended in pieces. Well, that's life, isn't it? For it's in our failures that we realize how richly we've been blessed.